All right, so hello everyone. My name is Colin Crochet, and these are my group mates.
I'm Sheila Honeybrook.
I'm Caroline Potts.
I'm Kenneth Lee.
And I'm Kenneth Aqua.
And we perform the coffee industrial engineering analysis. So before we begin, I'm just going to give everyone a brief overview as to what we'll be covering today. First, we're going to give you some background information as to the two firms that we studied, as well as any mathematical theory we use in our analysis. Then we'll move on to how we collected our data, as well as how we analyzed our data. Then we'll move on to how we created our simulation, as well as any comparisons between the results from our simulation and the observed data that we collected. Finally, we'll move on to our findings, as well as our conclusions, before talking a little bit about some future applications of the simulations that we created.
So the main basis of our project is to compare Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, so I'll start off with a bit of background about Starbucks. Starbucks was founded in 1971 by Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Becker, and changes were implemented by Howard Schultz, such as making Starbucks more of an authentic coffee house. The business model for Starbucks prioritizes customer satisfaction, and it aims to be a third place away from home and work. Starbucks also has over 22,000 stores worldwide. For Dunkin' Donuts was founded in 1950 by William Rosenberg, and changes were implemented by John Luther, such as shifting the focus from food items to drinks. The business model for Dunkin' Donuts prioritizes quick service, and customers don't linger in the store, they move in and out, unlike Starbucks. Dunkin' Donuts also has over 11,300 stores worldwide. This is a chart of Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, and it compares the two, so I'll give a few seconds for you guys to look at it. So the store mottos show that Starbucks emphasizes customer satisfaction and Dunkin' Donuts emphasizes quick service.
So as an industrial engineering analysis, our project lies at the intersection of business modeling and mathematical application. Now, we will be using a theoretical background as part of queuing theory, which was applied to various industries with the purpose of improving consumer output or firm efficiency and product output. And with that, we're going to use Arena simulation software, which will apply these principles of queuing theory, and it will model those processes as observed within those particular firms. And we will also use a Minitab statistical package to analyze the data that we have collected, and we will further impose that analyzed data into our simulations to further accurately represent those firm observations, and then we can make a usable simulation from there.
So to collect the data for our research project, over a span of 5 days, we visited a Dunkin' Donuts and a Starbucks location in New Brunswick. And we used a timer application to record the time from when the customer first got in line to when they ordered their drink, and from when they first got in line to when they received their order. And a couple of difficulties we had with this methodology were, first of all, human error, just starting and stopping the timer exactly when the processes occurred. And secondly, that on the first day of data collection, we all had slightly different methods. For example, some of us were starting the timer when the customer first walked in the door, and some of us were when the customer first got online. And little differences like that could affect our data. This is a picture of the timer application that we used to record. This is the Starbucks store layout. This is how we observed the store to look when we visited. You can see in blue that there were generally 2 cashiers, and in yellow, typically 2 baristas. And the red circles are where we sat to observe the lines. This is the Starbucks process map, which is the processes that we saw customers go through to receive their drinks. Basically, first the customer would walk in the store and get online. Then they would go up to a cashier and order their drink. And if they ordered a hot drip coffee, which is a pre-made stock hot coffee, then the cashier themselves would make the drink and give it to the customer. But if it was any other type of specialty drink, the cup was passed on to a barista who would make the drink and give it to the customer. This is the Dunkin' Donuts store layout. You can see it's slightly different from that of Starbucks. The first difference is that you can see in yellow there was only 1 barista at Dunkin' Donuts as opposed to 2 at Starbucks. And secondly, you can see that the line to the cashier is more direct at Dunkin' Donuts. This is the Dunkin' Donuts process map, which is also slightly different from the Starbucks process map. The main difference is that when a customer orders either a hot or an iced drip item, at Dunkin' Donuts it's made by the cashier, whereas at Starbucks only hot drip items are made by the cashier. And at both stores, any other items are made by the barista.
All right, so after 5 days of data collection, we had amassed roughly 500 data points. In order to sort and analyze all these data points, we use a software called Minitab, which is very similar to Excel. At first, we sectioned all the data points by restaurant as well as by drink type. We then ran a set of basic descriptive statistics, including mean, median, maximum, and minimum. After all that was done, we ran a series of hypothesis tests for each section of data, in which we determined the best probability distribution for each section. To do this, Minitab output to us a series of graphs as well as 2 values, p-values and Anderson-Darling values. P-values range from 0 to 1 should be as high as possible. However, any p-value that exceeds an arbitrary alpha value, which is usually set around 0.05, deems that the probability distribution is an acceptable fit for the data. The Anderson-Darling value can exceed 1, however, it should be as low as possible, and the Anderson-Darling values were generally used just to reaffirm any conclusion we had drawn from the p-values. As you can see here, this was what was output to us. On the left-hand side, you can see that the data points were graphed onto the probability distributions, and on the right-hand side, you see we have a table with p-values as well as Anderson-Darling values. Minitab would output to us 4 of these tabs for a total of 16 possible probability distributions, and using a combination of the visual graphs as well as the p-values and the Anderson-Darling values, we were able to determine the best probability distribution for any section of data. Once that was determined, we created a histogram of the data and overlaid the best probability distribution onto that histogram.
So once we had collected and analyzed all the data, it was time to move on to inputting the data into an arena simulation. Simulations can translate observations made in the real world into a model. They can be used to optimize customer outflow, and specifically for the restaurants of Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks, they can be used to increase profitability and efficiency. So simulations is a good way to evaluate and manipulate situations in business without disturbing normal day-to-day activity. Simulations use data to make themselves more accurate to the actual scenario. This is the Starbucks simulation that we made in the Arena simulation software. Simulations work with 3 main components. There's the entity, which moves through the simulation. There is the process, which acts upon the entity, and the resources, which is what the entity uses to act upon, which is what the process uses to act upon the entity. Entities line up in queues in order to wait to use resources, and resources can be changed and manipulated to experiment with better customer outflow and efficiency. As you can see, the entity, which from the left side is the customer, goes into the simulation as acted upon by the process, which is taking an order. The resources are the baristas and cashiers in the restaurant.
So this is our Dunkin' Donuts simulation, and we can see that the customers enter the simulation on the far left, following an arrival times pattern of a distribution called the Poisson process. And as they move on, they make their drink order. Their drink order gets separated into 4 different processes depending on which drink order they make. And furthermore, their payment process is different in Dunkin' Donuts depending on which drink order they made. In fact, the customers may pay before or after the drink is made in the case of Dunkin' Donuts. And then we actually can model those production processes of those individual drinks using collected data that we analyze using Minitab. And with that gives us an accurate representation of our simulation and of those firm observations such that this simulation is quite effective.
This is the simulation analysis data for overall sojourn time. Overall sojourn time is the time from when a customer enters the line to when they receive their drink at the end of the process. We use the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test to test the accuracy of our simulation. And the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test is a test that compares the cumulative distributions of the 2 data sets, observed and simulated, and assigns a specific KS value to show similarity. The Kolmogorov-Smirnov test also assigns a specific critical value, and if the KS value is below the critical value, we can determine that the distributions match. For the Starbucks latte and overall sojourn time, our conclusion was that the distributions match. On the left side, we see the Dunkin' Donuts latte, which for overall sojourn time. Here as well, the distributions match. This is the simulation analysis results for service time. Service time is the time from when a drink is ordered to when the drink is in the customer's hand. This is the service time for the order to Frappuccino at the Starbucks restaurant, and the KS value is below the critical value, showing that distributions match. If you look to the left side, you can see the histogram of the Starbucks Frappuccino, the data that we collected and the simulation data. As you can see, the data sets are very similar, showing that we produce an accurate simulation. This is the simulation analysis results for service time. While the KS value is above the critical value, meaning the distributions do not match, the 2 data sets are shown to be similar by the histogram. The reasons the distributions do not match exactly is because lack of lack of time, and a small amount of data points, relatively small sample size.
Alright, so ultimately our research found that Dunkin' Donuts overall had lower sojourn times than that of Starbucks, and this conclusion can be relayed upon several reasons. From our observations, we know that several cashiers participate in a type of process called process overlaying. That occurs when a cashier is doing two tasks at once, such as servicing a customer as well as making a drink. And so that actually interferes with our simulation because it is rather difficult to explicitly model those complex employee behavior models. And so it's quite difficult for that to impose within our simulation that we made here. Furthermore, we know that Dunkin' Donuts actually just takes less time to make those drinks. Their production machines are expedited toward a quicker model of products. And furthermore, Dunkin' Donuts has a shorter customer interaction as opposed to Starbucks, which offers a lot more customer loyalty and brand value. And so with that conclusion, we know that these particular firms and their operations actually model their business models in a reflective manner, because Dunkin' Donuts, of course, is going to be faster than the valued Starbucks in a sense. So now we know that simulations are accurate models. We know that we can take these observations and accurately impose them within a virtual platform that is perfectly mutable and interchangeable in order to create better conclusions. So that leads to our future applications. Once we know that the simulations are accurate representations, we can change them. We can change different property zones such as resource management or workflow rotation, such that these simulations can yield new results, which essentially transposes into the real world to show how these firms operate within changing conditions.
We'd like to acknowledge our mentor, Brandon Thies and Julie Malavade, for their undying help and support. We'd also like to thank the director of the Governor's School of Engineering and Technology, Dr. Eileen Rosen, and the associate director, Jean-Patrick Antoine. We'd like to thank the New Brunswick Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts establishments for letting us conduct our research in their facilities. And we'd like to thank the following sponsors of the Governor's School of Engineering and Technology. These are the resources for the copious research that we did for our project.
All right, thank you for your time, and we'd now like to open the floor to any questions.
Do your data kind of show any complexities of the drinks that you want us to make, or the drink samples? Was that anyone part of your data?
So our data collection process essentially modeled all the different types of drinks that a store may offer into forming categories, that is drip, frappuccino, iced, or latte, depending. It's very it's very general based on the flavor of those drinks that we observed. And so, of course, those properties such as size, flavors were not accounted for.
Yeah, after our observation, we realized that like different types of latte, for example, cappuccino and espresso, like there wasn't that much of a difference in the time it took to make the drink. Yes.
I think today Starbucks posted the very good second quarter earnings. I see that your sojourn time is much shorter at Dunkin' Donuts than Starbucks. Do you think that what makes Starbucks make a little bit more money? Is time important, or are there other factors you found there that could account for their high profit margins?
Well, the Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts work in completely different ways. Starbucks has a more restaurant feel. People go there and they don't mind waiting in line there. That wasn't exactly in our research project, but the price of the drinks, the atmosphere of the restaurant, there's so much more that goes into the restaurant than just the line time.
And kind of going on to what you were just saying, the restaurant field, did you take a lot of accountability of how much food was going out of each place? Because it seemed like everything was made with focus like on drinks, but if you have somebody that's ordering more food from one place than the other, the wait time could be a lot longer.
We did
not take into account the food. We discarded data points that had food in them, so it could have affected our data slightly because people could have been waiting in line behind people who were ordering food. So yes, that is a consideration in our data.
Yes.
Approximately how many times did you go to the locations to collect data?
I believe we went 5 times for Starbucks and 4 times for Dunkin'. However, even though there was a discrepancy in the amount of actual times we went to each store, the total amount of time we spent in each store collecting data was the same.
Were you allowed to sample products from the different places?
With our own money, yes.
Did they know they were being observed?
No, they did not. So we didn't want them to be able to change the way they service their customers in order to expedite their processes to look better or worse. So they were completely blind to the study that was being conducted.
I thought it was interesting that some drinks were handled by the barista and others were handled by the cashier. Did they ever do kind of intelligent things like if the barista wasn't occupied and it was a long line, maybe the barista could serve the pre-made drink? Did they add it to account, or did they just mechanically always do the same thing?
It seemed like they were pretty standard at Starbucks, but Dunkin' Donuts there was a little bit more variation.
Do you think the accuracy of your model could be improved if you went to these establishments at different times, like for example in the morning?
I mean, we're collecting this data and we're observing the specific cues that observed there. So actually just collecting this at a different particular time doesn't necessarily change the pattern because we are just observing cues here. If we see that people go more in the morning, well, they do go in the morning. However, that does not necessarily change the operations that we observe here. In fact, if we were to observe, we wanted to observe these at a particular time in order to create a sense of control for all the data points collected here. And furthermore, we do not know for sure if those particular firms are going to alter their operations within different time zones. And so that's going to affect our data in such a way.
Okay, now that you've confirmed that your simulations generally are correct based on the models of these companies, going back to the fact how although Dunkin' Donuts has a shortened sojourn time and faster production process, and we streamlined with one less barista, they still make less profit. How would you apply your simulation model to the actual workforce, and what would you do to help them make up the difference?
Well, using the simulation, you could change the resources and see how it affected the total times it took and see if you could increase profitability by maybe using one last cashier and see how much that affected it. And if it didn't make a huge impact, but it increased the profitability significantly, that could help.
Right, that's just not conjecture. There actually have been studies conducted in which professional firms have used simulations, alter the resource management or workflow rotation within those particular firms and simulations in order to gauge new effects or that the simulations have on those firm efficiency and other factors.
Yep.
Seems like the firms themselves could build all this kind of analysis right into their cash registers. Do any firms do like that, like actually gather that sort of information and feed that back into the process?
We know that Starbucks has conducted experiments as to see how fast it takes to order a drink, how fast it takes to do service. We focus specifically on queuing, so I don't know if stores, our research didn't show that stores did specifically what we did.
Any more questions? Great. Thank you.